compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
Your Honor, Mr. Teacher. A man is walking along a riverbank. Although he's only 47, he looks older. He's out of breath from walking so fast and his thoughts are gloomy. The cool air is blowing from the Tobol River. Wrapped up in his thoughts, the man is muffling himself up in his greatcoat. Now, according to the table of ranks, he can buy suede trousers and a plumed hat. In this case, he will look like one of Gogol's characters. When they were reading the royal decree, he was addressed as Your Worship for the first time. He doesn't care about regalia. He's rather amused by it all. However, it's a pity that he can't make his grandfather proud of his achievements any longer. Councillor of State was a rank similar to general and was awarded for peacetime achievements. It isn't necessary to look for something like the plot of a blockbuster or an action movie. You simply need to understand the atmosphere of the period he lived and worked in. We need to understand the gripping atmosphere of the period. It was Altynsarin village, the year 1844. The riders of Khan Kenesarai attacked unexpectedly. They were merciless and didn't spare women or children. Ibrai's father was killed and Ibrai himself only survived by chance. Jetibai, who worked for Altynsarin's father, saved him. Ibrai was only 3, and although he remembered very little, this event had a huge influence on his life. First and foremost, he was a teacher. Things that were happening around often frustrated him. His educational work deserves high praise. His achievements are really surprising and admirable. Chapter 1. I want to know. Nothing can shake my deeply held conviction. I hope to God I will be able to stand up to human intrigues and will not be bored to death by undeserved misfortunes. When Ibrai's father died, his grandfather brought him up. His grandfather, Balkoza Derjamburshin, was an influential army captain of Orenburg Commission. His grandfather, Balkoza, sent him to Orenburg to study. Balkoza dreamt that his grandson would build a career and become a public official, and it happened as he wanted. However, Ibrai decided his own way. He committed his first extraordinary act when he went to school for the first time. Do you know what he started with? He went to the school head. At that time, before going to the head of the school where he was going to study, his grandfather had to write a letter. The boy was stubborn and willful. He wanted Jetibai, who had saved his life, to stay with him. However, it was against the rules. Nevertheless, 9-year-old Ibrai managed to give convincing reasons. It is unknown exactly what he said, but Jetibai came with him to the school. Jetibai, who accompanied him, worried a lot. He feared that he wouldn't be allowed to attend the school because of this. Ibrai managed to achieve what he wanted from the start. This victory was the first, but not the last. It was easy for him to study at school. He quickly grasped everything and received praise from the teachers. You can find information about his activities in documents, as well as mentions of his meritorious service and diligence. He was hard-working, persistent and meticulous, but his character wasn't so likable. When he encountered his first obstacles in the way of his learning, he revealed his ruthless character. It was an experimental school. Although students had full board and lodging, it was decided not to let them forget about steppe life. Therefore, they also had white felt yurts and veterinary instruments. The school had a herd of horses, and the students spent 2 months on the steppe. There was sports equipment in the school so students could do gymnastics, and of course there was a library. Students studied the Russian, Arabic, Tatar and Persian languages, the basics of Islam, arithmetic and the investigative process. Students were severely disciplined if they broke the rules. At the time, corporal punishment was normal. It was only banned after the revolution. In elementary and middle school, it was thought that only physical punishment could knock sense into children's heads. 48 students graduated over 19 years. Ibrai graduated with high honours. First, he worked for his grandfather as a clerk in Orenburg, then as an interpreter in a regional governing body. After that, his life changed. Chapter 2: School of Life. Although everything seems to be very well, I'm worried like a person who is holding an expensive thing in his hands and all the time looks nervously around, because he's afraid that he's going to be deprived of it. Due to my nature and circumstances, I have become suspicious of everything related to the future. Warrant Harunji Altynsarin was posted to Orenburg fortification to work as a translator under the head of that fortification. His translation work wasn't burdensome. His duty was to announce visitors and to do translations if necessary. He had a lot of free time. The young man spent all of his free time reading. He didn't hesitate to ask his boss, the famous Orientalist Vasily Grigoriev, about unknown words and other things. It's said that Ibrai was so successful in this that Grigoriev couldn't help sending the inquisitive young man to another scientist, Nikolai Ilminsky. It established a friendship which lasted until Ibrai's death. Nikolai Ivanovich was the first person who wrote Altynsarin's biography. He was the person Altynsarin confided in. Oh, Nikolai Ivanovich, Father, please make efforts on my behalf and help me keep alive my hope. I always see God knows what, and my feelings grow dark and I have gloomy thoughts. What kind of life is it? Will I really spend it in this way? In 1860, 4 schools opened on the steppe, and Orenburg graduates were sent to teach there. Altynsarin joined them too, and was very glad to do it. Although he didn't have to go there, he gave up his high-powered job in the Orenburg Commission. As we say nowadays, it was quite a cushy job, and it was very difficult to get this kind of job. It was a diplomatic mission. Altynsarin wasn't interested in cushy jobs. For some reason, he didn't claim the money for his travel expenses. Altynsarin was paid 120 rubles as a relocation allowance. As for the relocation allowance given to everybody posted to the steppe, Altynsarin didn't take it. This place is only suitable for exiles. In winter, my only enjoyment is meeting some decent Kyrgyz and spending a few enjoyable minutes talking to honest people. The conditions were poor. New teachers didn't have a building or textbooks. The community there wasn't civilized. On the other hand, students started achieving success because of Altynsarin's patience. Fresh from school, he was only 19. According to many people, he had a volatile, generous, and sometimes ruthless character. At the same time, he was very honest and had a warm heart. Report given to the Governor-General of Orenburg and Samara states the following. Warrant Harunji Ibrai Altynsarin reported to me that students studying at school from January the 8th last year to March the 1st this year, students learned to read printed books and had Russian words translated by heart. Warrant Harunji is equivalent to military rank of second lieutenant in the Cossack troops. Ibrai wasn't a serviceman. However, he was offered a brilliant career as an official a few times. But Ibrai was obsessed with only one idea, which was educating his people. Chapter 3. Secret always has a place in life. I do my best to exert influence on students' morality. I don't want them to take bribes. You may laugh at me, but sometimes when students have free time, I act as a mullah and tell them what I know from spiritual history and other useful stories. Altynsarin encountered a lot of difficulties because children had never attended school, so they found it difficult to sit for 30 minutes listening, taking notes, memorizing words and studying. I suppose this is a short dictation which helped check spelling and handwriting. Good handwriting and correct spelling were necessary to achieve success. If in addition to these a person could produce documents, it meant that this person would make his way in the world. This was the reality of the 19th century. Children of rich steppe dwellers were the first students. However, later it became possible for everyone to attend to study at the school. The fact that Ibrai Altynsarin was able to open schools for ordinary people proves he had the qualities of a hero. It was very difficult to convince everyone of the importance of teaching in the Kazakh language, but he managed to do it. There wasn't even a written alphabet, let alone textbooks. He wrote an alphabet based on the Russian one, and he wrote textbooks. As usual, there were people who supported him, and those who were envious of his achievements. He said that some people spread rumors that he had been baptized and wore a cross. Although it was a lie, it was impossible to prove it to suspicious people. People criticized him, saying that he was a socialist, and even his relatives did the same. Two of his brothers fought for the position of governor in Kostanay. Both of them tried to gain Ibrai's support. Nevertheless, people's prosperity was more important for Ibrai than relationships with his relatives, and he voted for an ordinary Kazakh. After this, his brothers started making complaints against him and blamed him for inciting riots. Although Ibrai had a problem with authority, his merits were too great to ignore. His hard work and zeal for carrying out his duty contributed to the stability of the Orenburg fortified district. He helped the head of the garrison with negotiations. He conducted negotiations in such a way that it became possible to enter into mutually beneficial agreements on supplying timber and other profitable operations. Although he didn't strive to build a career, he was awarded the Order of Saint Svyatoslav and 2 Orders of Saint Anna. A few months before his death, he was promoted to the rank of State Councilor, which was very unusual for a teacher. This rank can be compared to the rank of Deputy Governor. He could have risen to the next rank, which was a hereditary title of nobility. However, this case caused speculations too. It was possible to achieve such high rank through considerable achievement, and they were intended for people who made great contributions to the development of science, intelligence operations, or the expansion of territory and the widening of state borders. Perhaps there was a secret in his life too. Epilogue, my great consolation. I'm informing you about the death of Turgay Region Kyrgyz School Inspector Mr. Altynsarin, who died on July 17, 1889. He had suffered from heart disease during the whole summer. Before his death, he had stayed in bed without hearing or saying anything. As for his family members, he left 2 sons and 2 daughters. His eldest son is 9 and the youngest is 2. The eldest daughter is 12 and the youngest is just 1 year old. I'm his nephew and I'm a 3rd former. I was sent to study at school by my uncle Altynsarin. There were 5 schools, 4 2-form colleges, a vocational school, and the first women's college. In addition, there were 2 colleges for Russian settlers and a school for teachers. The money raised by Altynsarin was responsible for opening most of these. I'm roaming around the whole steppe trying to find money, Ibrai said. He often wrote to his friends who were teachers that he had a lot of difficulties and that he didn't know what he'd gotten himself into. He had a lot of opponents. He often irritated the authorities with his amazing zeal, opposed relatives who did not believe in him. However, it seems that gratitude was the last thing on his mind. Here are some phrases which were dictated to students during examinations. Love God, be kind, and respect your elders and mentors. Being kind was the most important creed for Ibrai himself. He followed it all his life. Your Honor, Mr. Teacher. I always strive to be a useful person. Now the thought that I'm finally achieving this goal brings me consolation.